I truly don't think it's that far-fetched to believe that most Americans think that the Super Bowl is one of the biggest events in the world. But the real question is the Super Bowl, in fact, bigger than the World Cup? Now, the answer should be pretty obvious, but I, growing up, would always think, of course, that the Super Bowl was far bigger than the World Cup. I mean, how would the World Cup be the biggest viewed sports thing in the world? That makes zero sense, or it made zero sense to myself until I sat back and thought to myself recently, well, that actually does make sense, because statistically, football or foosball or whatever you want to call it, soccer is the world's #1 sport. Maybe that's changed a little bit. I haven't done very much research since that stat got released. So let me know in the comments down below if I'm wrong. But we're going to be checking out World Cup or Super Bowl, what's bigger today in today's video. So go ahead and like this video, subscribe if you guys haven't already. I'll do a few of these types of reactions every week, and then maybe like a fun fact video or whatever. But I thought this would be pretty cool to cover because, oh my God, like, why in the world would this not be, like, why would the Super Bowl not be the world's biggest sporting event? But again, me, the older me now, fully realizes that the World Cup could be the world's biggest viewed sport, or at least bigger than the Super Bowl.
Bowl can feel like the center of the sporting universe.
Absolutely. I literally thought it was. I'm over here in Korea, and people in Korea were watching the Super Bowl. I mean, a lot of different countries are watching the Super Bowl, but not nearly as many probably were tuned into the World Cup.
Between the weeks-long build-up, the flash bulbs which light up the stadium while the opening kickoff hangs in the air, and the world-famous recording artist who plays to an audience of millions at half-time, the event has an aura of unquantifiable size.
That's also another thing too. I don't think there's like a halftime show or anything that crazy at a World Cup. It's just basically the game playing, which of course people come to watch the game. But for the Super Bowl, people watch the Super Bowl for the spectacle that it is. I mean, there's the commercials that are only aired during the Super Bowl. There are the performances that people love to appreciate. I mean, this year there was Kendrick Lamar, you had Serena Williams and stuff like doing her thing, and a few other peoples and stuff that kind of made guest appearances like Samuel L. Jackson and the such. It was a masterpiece. I absolutely love watching the Super Bowl for several reasons. And of course, you have the people that are just there to watch the sport for what it is, which is totally fine. But with the World Cup, I don't think it's the same way. I don't think it's designed the same way. Of course, it's not even supposed to be designed the same way. They're two totally different sports. But again, to add to the spectacle that is the World Cup, I would think that there'd be like, you know, some performances there or something to also entice the people even further than just the game itself. But a lot of you guys that are watching this are probably like, well, dude, what's the purpose of going to a World Cup in the first place? It's to see this big rivalry that has been taking place throughout the entirety of the soccer season, football season, right? The actual football, like European football season, come to fruition at the final bout to see who takes the cake. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not sure what the interval is for World Cup, if it's every 4 years, like the Olympics, or if it's every single year. I'm not like locked in with that at all. So let me know in the comments down below.
But just how does it compare with the World Cup? Well, in America, it's enormous. Super Bowl 56, which saw the Los Angeles Rams defeat the Cincinnati Bengals, was relatively unremarkable in viewership terms. And yet, across the various broadcasting platforms, the game totaled a viewership in excess of 112 million.
Jesus,
that represented a rise on the previous year, but it was still significantly short of the 172 million viewers attracted by Super Bowl 51, in which the New England Patriots enacted a stunning comeback against the Atlanta Falcons.
That was a crazy Super Bowl. I remember going to the bathroom in the middle of that game, and the Patriots were down by a lot. And then I came back, and this is when Tom Brady was playing, and I'm like, oh my God, how did the score go from like 16-0 to like 30-something, 20-something? And with an upset of, you know, the Patriots taking the cake. They had no points, and they bounced back and dominated the Falcons. I was absolutely mind blown. That was, to me, by far the best Super Bowl I had ever seen in my entire life. Easily.
But 2022 still described the event's penetration. According to Nielsen data published by NFL.com, 90% of all people using a television in the United States during the event on February the 13th, 2022 were watching Super Bowl 56. So while it has its ups and downs, the Super Bowl dominates its market.
Okay.
By adjusting its estimates to include different sized viewing parties, Nielsen calculated that roughly 208 million people watched the most recent Super Bowl, a figure roughly two-thirds the size of the United States population. But while that describes its local presence and doesn't incorporate the between 30 to 50 million viewers who watched from outside the US, expressing that viewership as a percentage of the global population of 8 billion provides important context.
Very true, because, I mean, we can't really expect the world to be watching a sport that was inherently made for people playing in America, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure it's very easily to fall into the abyss of defaultism. You know what I'm saying? If you are only consuming and watching and digesting things that are made from your own country, it's easy to assume that the rest of the world is also locked into your country. I mean, think about how the media is in America and all of the things and the powers that be that pretty much brainwash Americans into thinking that, wow, you are the only country to exist on the planet, and people treat it as such. They never travel, they never get outside the box. A lot of people don't even leave their hometowns in America, and the only content they consume is off of their televisions or the internet, in which they, have like an infinite echo chamber. And of course, it creates these voids where people think, wow, of course, why wouldn't the Super Bowl be the most viewed sport on the entire planet? Obviously, it's like my favorite thing, so it should be everybody else's. And everybody in America watches the Super Bowl. So why wouldn't the rest of the world watch the Super Bowl? Doesn't make any sense. And that is the very thinking that is like, it's ignorant, obviously, because that's not the reality. Most of the world is more likely to be locked into a sport like, soccer than American football. Literally, listen, American football. There's football, which is soccer, or American football, which is, America. Now, I will say American football is being spread to, some European countries and maybe a few others outside of that, which is cool, but it's not nearly on the same scale as the World Cup. And I am seeing that.
And also shows that the World Cup is on an entirely different scale.
Yeah.
In 2018, 3.6 billion people watched the tournament.
Apples and oranges. Look at this. What is an ant to an elephant? You know what I'm saying? An ant would be the Super Bowl, right? Tiny little thing. 100 million, blah, blah, blah. 3.6 billion viewers. That's nuts. That's absolutely insane. Imagine the World Cup having like a halftime event or some crazy shit. Like that, 3 billion people looking at you is incredible. That actually makes more sense as to why Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi are as famous as they are, besides the fact that obviously they're some of the best soccer players of all time, right? Or football players of all time, right? The viewership for that sport is absolutely astronomical. Something that you can't even fathom. It's insane.
Across the 64 games played in Russia, the average per-match television audience was 194 million.
Good God.
Essentially, on a viewership basis alone, that equates to 64 Super Bowls within a month.
Can you believe that? 64 Super Bowl level viewerships a month. And then you have everybody locked in for the final event, right? That's insane. This is something new that I just learned right now. Like, I did not process how many people viewed the World Cup. I knew it was big, but that number is massive.
According to FIFA's estimates, the total audience across all games and ceremonies in 2022 is expected to rise significantly and exceed 5 billion.
Oh my God.
That would be greater than the 3.6 billion who watched the 2012 Olympic Games in London, or the 3.2 who tuned in to watch the Rio Games 4 years later. But the final itself has a staggeringly high audience, and as a single one-off game is really the only direct comparison with the Super Bowl. In 2010, 909.6 million people worldwide watched Spain beat the Netherlands. An audience
that is insane. 909 million people for one game. Dude, that number is like, is diabolical, bro. Like, that's literally like 9 times the amount of what a casual Super Bowl viewership is. And I am thinking like, oh my God, it's a phenomenal event, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm also realizing that viewership for the Super Bowls is a third of the American population. And America is only a fraction of countries like China or India, which has, they both have like billions of people. America has like barely 250 million people. It's nuts.
It's more than 14 times the size of the two countries' collective population. In 2014, that figure rose again, with 1.01 billion viewers tuning in to see Germany defeat Argentina after extra time. And that number grew further in 2018, with 1.1 billion people across the world seeing France defeat Croatia in Russia.
Damn, bro.
It's an upward trend which captures the growth of the event, but also the tournament's truly global nature and the final's imperviousness to the identity or size of the countries taking part.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So obviously, looking at this data, it's clear as day. The World Cup takes the cake by a landslide, bro. By a landslide. I was so naive to ever think that the Super Bowl could, even have a slight inkling of a chance of being a more popular sport than the World Cup. It says it in the World Cup. Super Bowl, the World Cup. Like, that's insane.
In that regard, it's a spectacle and an event without comparison.
Oh my God. Well, that literally was phenomenal. Make sure you guys subscribe to this individual here. I will link the original video in the description down below. You guys let me know what you think. And I will see you real soon. I can't believe I was, again, proven wrong. I mean, I can believe it, obviously. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Absolutely. I'm cooked. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys real soon. Take care.